Mililli. Welcome to the Love Show, where we grapple with the question, what is love? Today we want to know, is there such a thing as tough love? I've been homeless. My first experience as an act of tough love from my mom at the young age of 17. A girl by herself on the streets at 17. I had a job and a car, but I relied on my mother to house me as I was still in high school. It's a miracle I graduated at all. I did, though. But my parents didn't come to my graduation. I didn't know I had to invite them. The school had invited everyone else's parents. I guess if you don't live with them, they don't invite them. I guess I was supposed to invite them. And I didn't. So neither of them saw me graduate. But I did, against all odds, no home, no future. But darn it, I got my high school diploma. Not that I still have a hard copy or my yearbook. When one is homeless, one can not keep much stuff. Just what one can carry. My mom, still to this day, has never been homeless. My job was at a gas station. I was a gas attendant. I made about $5 an hour. Not enough to pay rent anywhere because I was still in high school and a minor and could not work the hours that would be needed at $5 an hour to make any kind of money that could pay rent or bills at all. My mother continued to collect child support for me from my dad, though, until I was 18. I never saw a penny of it. I was kicked out just shortly after my 17th birthday. She'd collect child support from my dad until I was actually 19. Until I was no longer 18 and no longer a minor. And she called all of this tough love. What horrible thing did I do? Absolutely nothing. I guess she thought I robbed her house. I did not rob my own house. What I did was have my next door neighbor over while my mom was away. I had the neighbor over a lot. She was my mom's neighbor. My mom lived there for a while before I did and introduced me to the neighbor. She lived in kind of a sketchy area of town, but that wasn't my fault. She lived there. She chose that. So the neighbor girl spent the night. We had a sleepover I was 17. She was 17. We had a sleepover while my mom was away for the weekend. And while I was sleeping, neighbor girl robbed my mom's jewelry box. I didn't even know it. I didn't know it was her. I didn't know it had happened or when until the neighbor girl confessed to me years later. She said it was to impress a guy that was now in jail if it was any consolation. It wasn't. I was homeless. No consolation at all. At least the kid in jail got 3 hots and a cot. I didn't have that. If I thought failure was an option, I could have just let all of that ruin me. Thank God I didn't. But that tough love, felt nothing like love. It did me no favors or benefits and robbed my parents and myself of sharing the experience of the once-in-a-lifetime experience of my high school graduation. Can't do that again. Don't get that back. It robbed me of so many opportunities. People look down on homeless people. They don't want to give them jobs. They don't want to give them apartments. They don't want to rent them anything. They don't want to help. People don't want to help homeless people. Since then, I have argued with parents online, not my parents, other people's parents, and in person, parents who think that kicking out their teenager is just the tough love they need. I start by asking said parents if they've ever been homeless. Every single one of them has said no. They're ready to cause that problem for their kid. My mom, as I said, had also never been homeless. To inflict homelessness upon your child as a disciplinary action is to neglect to be a parent at all, but also to neglect to be a loving parent. Once someone is homeless, it is hard for them to take a shower. Never mind, hold a job, keep a job, find a job, or a car even. Once you lose the address that you need to get the job, and the job that you need to get the address, it is most difficult, if not impossible, to get either back. Definitely impossible without the help of someone else. And then you have to deal with making it through the night without someone raping, robbing, or killing you for your shoes in your sleep. Then without a job, you cannot buy food or gas for a car, or pay rent, or even rent on a storage unit to put your stuff in. You can't pay for a phone. A person can just literally disappear. I almost did. Once the unemployment runs out, you don't even exist anymore on paper. And my mom said, "You don't want anyone else to know about this, trust me." Like I had done something horrible and wrong. She thought it was my other friends who were homeless, who I'd let come in and shower in her house. She wanted to blame them, the homeless people. Blame the homeless people. Why? We're going to blame the homeless people, and we're not going to help them. We're going to give them shit. Sorry, excuse my language. I usually don't swear like that, but really? And then we're going to blame them. Like I said, the neighbor girl confessed years later to me, personally, and said she was sorry, which is nice, but I got questioned at the police department. My mom thought I did this. So she convinced me not to tell the rest of my family. And I didn't even put in any of this together until many years later, when my dad was asking why he wasn't invited to my graduation. I initially didn't understand what was going on. I was homeless, soon to be jobless, and carless. I was rather overwhelmed by my situation. My boyfriend lived with his mom at the time, and I ended up living with them until I left for college. So my dad set me up at the only college he would pay for me, which was a community college in Kansas. Luckily, I was going to school for fine art, and the Kansas City Art Institute, where Disney went, was really close to the community college that I went to. So close that I had more than a few professors who also taught at the Art Institute and told us that our class's only difference was the price tag and the location. Same exact course. So that would have been a decent hand up back into the world if my dad didn't, like me, really know how to pick 'em. Because he set me up in a house with my stepmother and my stepbrother, and he was not going to be living there. That little tidbit was sprung on me at the last minute. He just got a job and a house in Ohio. Ohio. So I suck it up. I do this for over a year. I go to community college in Kansas. I leave my boyfriend behind in Connecticut, who had taken me in, him and his mom. I leave him behind. I go all the way out to Kansas, and I do this for over a year. And my car dies. I ask my stepmother what I should do. The car had been used by my older sister while she went to school. My father and my stepmother owned the car. It was a big boat, a 77 Le Mans. It was huge and brown, but I made the best of it and used it to get to school and work for over a year. I was working at an art gallery, learning picture framing, and in my second year, the car died. This was in 1992. The 77 Le Mans was not a new Mercedes by any stretch of the imagination. But nonetheless, my asking my stepmother, when my dad was not there, what I should do, prompted her to just go ballistic and start punching me in the head and yelling at me to get out. So I'm kicked out again. More tough love. But this time I'm 21. It's actually my 21st birthday. That was what I got for my 21st birthday. Kicked out, homeless, in the middle of nowhere, with no help whatsoever. So my stepmother violently kicked me out. She left a shiner. She was significantly taller than me and more athletic. And I'm really not a fighter. She had me in a headlock and was in such a fury punching me in the head that I was able to slowly push her arm that was holding me in the headlock up to my mouth, where I bit her with all I had. Still got my chompers. Saved my life. Probably. I don't think she really meant to give up. Then she tried to push the lie that I just bit her out of nowhere and wore a big bandage on her arm. She later tried to kill my dad, so I was exonerated. Well, she apparently drugged him and left him in the van while she ran off to have a lesbian affair. They later divorced. You can't drug an old man who has a bad heart. She could have killed him. He's lucky he woke up. My dad really knows how to pick 'em. For years, though, my whole family sided with my mom and my stepmother, and sided this tough love. That should do me good and teach me a lesson. Tell me, how does leaving a 21-year-old girl homeless in the middle of nowhere do her good? What good comes of that? How did that shiner do me good? My counselors and professors and my boss understood better with the shiner, I suppose, when I had to resign from both school and work and move back to Connecticut, where my boyfriend and his mom welcomed me back into their home. What lesson did all of this tough love teach me? That tough love is not love at all, and that my mother and stepmother are not loving mothers or even loving people. I do not believe tough love is a thing. I have had a lot of supposed tough love thrown my way. I have found it to be neither tough, it's excruciating, and can be detrimental, nor love. It felt more like hatred and jealousy to me. The takeaway for me was that no one does it alone. Everyone gets some kind of help from somebody at some point. Everyone. Especially my mom and my stepmom. I feel tough love is just an excuse not to parent and to continue to collect child support in some cases. I don't feel that there really is such a thing as tough love. Nowadays, most scholars feel tough love is abuse. Certainly, giving a person a shiner is abuse, but the act of kicking me out as a means to help me was not helpful. I had to drop out of school where I was doing really well. For me, when I left in the middle of my second year, I had a 3.75 GPA. I could have finished my degree at the Art Institute. And that was what I was going to do, but I couldn't from Connecticut. So I went back to Connecticut, and the one school I wanted to go to there is the one school my dad won't give money to. It's the only school in his price range that has my major. I don't qualify for financial aid because my dad makes too much money. At the time, he was an electrical engineer. He's retired now. So I never go back. I'm 48 years old now, and I never went back to college. I went back to Connecticut and worked in art galleries for a few years. Then I moved out to San Diego after my boyfriend, who had been my rock and taken me in, beat me up in a drunken stupor to go live with my dad and my stepmother again. My stepmother still hated me. I had to live in the garden shed, essentially, because she didn't like the smell of patchouli. I had been wearing patchouli for years. It's an oil. It sticks in everything. And what little I still owned smelled like patchouli. She thought I was putting it on maliciously. I didn't even bring any with me. Just my stuff smelled like it. I wasn't doing anything maliciously to her, but yet again, same stepmother, a few years later, handed out the tough love. The patchouli got me the garden shed. Then she found out that my dad was going to let me use his truck to find a job, and that, friends, was the last straw. And I got kicked out again. More tough love. For the third time in my life, I was again homeless. Due to tough love. Homeless in San Diego, where I knew almost no one. I rented a room desperately from a man I met on a bus. He was weird and not honest about the situation at his house. My sister and my brother-in-law lived in San Diego too. My sister recognized my situation with this weird guy from the bus and that it was getting weirder and weirder. So my sister told me to move in with her. So I did. Then, while I was in Connecticut for Christmas and to sell my car, she kicked me out too. My car was there in Connecticut at my friend's house. I found a job and apartment in San Diego, though, and was set to move in as soon as I got back. My ticket was round trip, so her kicking me out was sort of superfluous. She did it on the phone. I had a new job at an art gallery in San Diego. I went back, sold my car, made back the money for the plane ticket, and got to visit my friends and family for Christmas before I went back to San Diego. But all of this tough love, I think, only made me need real, unconditional love. Helen Ma at Medium.com says that this is the most serious consequence of tough love. She says in her article from 2020 entitled Tough Love versus Unconditional Love, Why I Believe Traditional Discipline-Based Parenting is a Form of Child Abuse. Yes, the title of the article is that long. And it shows that Helen Ma is among the camp of scholars who now believe that tough love is not only not love, but child abuse. As an adult, after my own mother kicked me out, I'd hear people say things like, her mother doesn't even love her. No one can. Really, she just, with that one gesture of tough love, started me out and labeled me as unlovable and homeless. Helen Ma goes on to say that, unfortunately, this is an extremely fraught journey because it is virtually impossible to find something if you've never actually experienced it. Luckily, I had my grandmother and my dad who both loved me unconditionally. So I think I found it in my husband also. But I sort of carelessly threw away everything I had going in San Diego to go cross country with my husband shortly after meeting him, way before we got married. A bunch of other friends were going too. I went and it worked out for me. I married Scott twice, divorced him once. We did not necessarily live happily ever after, but I don't really know that many happy people. Does anyone get to live happily ever after? After life throws them turd after turd after turd. I say turd because it's not lemons that life throws you, kids. If life threw you free lemons, you could make lemonade. But friends, what life has thrown me has not been lemons. There's been a whole lot of this tough love that no matter what age a person is, as far as I can see, really is nothing but abuse. It certainly is not love. So I have to say, no, friends, there is no such thing as tough love. Remember it. There is only love. Remember it. I love you. Thanks for watching.